Think of a time when you experienced a conversation that left you with a new perspective, or perhaps an inquiry, or you might have felt that something has shifted in you after that conversation. Maybe it helped you gain a new level of clarity, or moved you to take action. That was a coaching conversation.
Hello and welcome to the Coaching Conversation podcast. This is your host, Salah Al-Laythi, and I am delighted to have with me today
Sarah Scarrett
from Clean Language. She's a coach, teacher, facilitator. She teaches clean language, and that's how I got to know about her work through Clean for Teams, symbolic modeling, and systemic modeling. So I'm really happy to have her on the podcast today. Sarah, welcome.
It's really great to be here, Salah. Love talking to you.
So we have a theme that we wanted to explore, but I want to start just by getting to know you a little bit, or the audience, to whoever is going to be listening to this, to know about you and your work. So what's your story and how did you get to where you are today?
So I live in France. I'm British, but I live in France. I've been here with my husband for the past 20 years, and we've been running our own business. And actually today, coincidentally, we've signed finally for the sale of that business. So big life changes, but they've been coming for a while. For about 10 years now, I've known that I wanted to do something differently. So I've been training in NLP and then came across clean language and systemic modeling, using clean language in groups. And so I've been moving towards facilitating, coaching, training, that kind of thing for the past few years, working both in English and in French.
That sounds like fun, having to teach in different cultures and using clean language. So how did you come across clean language? How did that start?
Yeah, it was just one of those fluke coincidences. When I was doing my NLP training, the trainer kept saying, keep it clean, keep it clean. And when I came back off the training, I must have just typed something like clean language or something into Google. And I came upon Judy Rees and Wendy Sullivan's book, and I just absolutely loved it. It's such a gentle approach. You can use it on yourself as well.
That's how I came to know about clean language as well. I think the first person I came to know about clean language from was Andrea. She's a local coach. And then I came across the work of Judy Rees, and then Caitlin through her book and presentations. And then, last year I was, getting more and more familiar with clean language, and just find it to be fascinating, and how these subtle nuances of asking questions and framing questions can bring about a lot more connection and collaboration than the questions we usually normally use. So how's been your experience with clean language so far? Like, when you use it with teams and individuals, what does it open up that you didn't see before using clean language?
So my first experience with clean language was in the French sort of side of things, and they run what they call a summer school. And I turned up and I felt really out of place. And I just had this assumption, now I realise, that everybody else knew what they were doing. They all seemed to know each other. They were busy in the kitchen making themselves teas and coffee. And I felt really lost. And there were about 25 of us, and we went into the training room and we had to talk about our present state. And I said that I felt that everybody else was on a boat and I was alone bobbing around in the sea. And little by little, somebody asked me a couple of questions. We went around the room and other people jumped on my metaphor, but they weren't all on a boat. Some people were in the sea, some people were on the beach, somebody was a lighthouse, there was diving. And little by little, my metaphor was built upon and changed. And it changed how I felt about the whole thing, but without anybody saying to me, oh, no, you're wrong. Of course you're welcome here, which would have had a complete different impact on me. And it was just the gentle power of metaphor and how we can understand other people's perceptions through the metaphors that they use, and then used in that, in that way, really come together. So by the end of that session, I really felt much more comfortable.
I know that metaphors, are used in clean language quite often. And, it sounds like this is something that has been helpful in sharing experience or building on each other's experience. What else has opened up as you use metaphors that can help teams and individuals connect better or collaborate better?
So David Grove was the originator of Clean, and he realized he was working with trauma patients at the time. And he realized that by using metaphor, people could describe what happened without having to talk about the actual events. And then by using metaphor and then the imagination, we can change things in our sort of metaphorical world that will have an impact and make a change in our everyday world. So that's where the sort of the use of metaphor came from. When we then use it with a team, again, I think it's really easy to understand somebody's metaphor if you've got that sort of clean posture and you're curious about what's going on, and you can use the idea of a metaphor to come together. So it could be that a team is experiencing conflict. So you could work out, what's going on for them, and you might get so say, for example, you've got a team and some of them are really good at sticking to deadlines and some of them are really terrible at sticking to deadlines. If you model out and get metaphors for deadlines and what it's like, once you understand that for somebody a deadline feels like having their head chopped off, you'll understand that they're going to have a very different approach to deadlines to somebody who feels like a deadline is a gentle pat on the back. And then you can start asking questions. You can start getting curious about other people's metaphors without getting judgmental about them.
I think you recommended this when I was taking the clean language or one of the clean language classes, and a Revealing Metaphors book. And it's interesting because, even though we try to use language to convey what we're trying to say, it fails us sometimes to convey the actual meaning. So metaphors can give us more of a rich understanding of what someone ideas or perceptions are like. So I know we have a theme around purpose, and you wanted to do a quick demo around like how to use sort of clean language metaphors, and that might help this whoever's listening, the audience, get a better understanding of how to use it, or maybe practice some clean language questions.
Yeah, so I'm running a course or facilitating a course shortly with Sean Hotchkiss, and it's all about purpose, how to live more purposefully. And as part of our research for the course, we've been doing a number of interviews, and I really enjoy them. So when you suggested this podcast, I thought, oh, great, that's an opportunity for me to do another little interview. And I think that with clean language, sometimes you can find the questions on the internet, they're available, but it's more compelling when you hear them being used, or get the experience of being used, and you can sort of see, the impact of those clean language questions. So yeah, if you're happy for me to give you a short interview about what purpose means to you, and then you can give some feedback about what it was like to have that interview.
Absolutely.
Okay, so is there anything that you like to know before we begin?
No, I don't think I have anything. And just we can just dive in.
Okay. So thinking about purpose, and for you, purpose is like what?
So the first image that came to mind was like an anchor. So just how, that anchor can kind of keep me, grounded, and reminding me of what am I, why am I doing what I'm doing?
So when it's an anchor, what kind of anchor is that anchor?
The anchor, it's like a boat, sizable boat with an anchor, and it's heavy. It's once you drop it into the water, it kind of like settle the boat. It just come to a standing still. So that's what I think of when I think of the anchor.
And when that's the first image that came to mind, whereabouts is that anchor?
It's like in the water. It's deep in the water. It's not like shallow water. It's deep. And you got to kind of pull it when you're getting ready to sail. You got to just pull a little bit of the rope to get it up on the boat.
And it's deep in the water, and you've got to pull it to get it up on the boat. And when you pull it to get it up on the boat, then what happens?
Well, the boat can sail, but then sometimes it can float without really a good sense of direction. I guess another image or object that I think of is like the anchor is one, but then also the compass. Like once I got the anchor on the boat, and I need just some sort of a compass to get a sense of direction.
So there's an anchor on the boat. It's deep and it's heavy, and it settles the boat. And there's a compass. And what kind of compass is that compass?
It's probably like one of those manual compasses, not the one that you have on your phone. It's just the one that's old school compass. And it's just gives you, you can find where you want to go, and how, what direction you want to move in.
And when you can find where you want to go, what direction you want to move in, is there anything else about finding where you want to go?
I think the clarity, the word clarity, or just having like some sort of, because I might know the direction, sense of direction, but maybe using this metaphor is like it's foggy, or there's rain or storm or something, and then there's sort of, okay, it's not clear. It's not clear if I'm going in that direction, it's the right direction, or I need to adjust.
And where does that clarity come from?
For me, it's mostly from having space around, like, or mental space. Like, I try and find, okay, I'm not constantly thinking about something or doing something. I have some sort of space or time to get some clarity around where I'm going.
There's mental space and time to get some clarity about where I'm going, and a compass, an old school compass, and an anchor deep in the water. Pull it up and the boat can sail. And when there's a compass and an anchor, is there a relation between compass and anchor?
Yeah, that's a good question. So the compass is direction and kind of action to me, and the anchor is more around clarity and just kind of settling. So it's interesting, because I usually say, like, I have my tagline is like, I help people balance clarity with action. Maybe that's the purpose, I don't know. but yeah, the anchor represents the clarity, but just like, settling and doing some uninterrupted reflection. And then the compass is the action. Let's now move forward and take action.
And when you say that you help people to balance clarity and action, and that could be the purpose, is there anything else about that when it could be the purpose?
I think it's mostly like the speed now comes into play. Like, if I'm clear and I have I have a direction to start to take action, then how fast I'm going now, like, or how fast I want to go, because that can also be part of the sailing metaphor. I know the direction, I have the anchor, but if the boat is not moving, I'm not going anywhere. Or if I'm moving too slow, maybe slow or fast, it could have an impact.
And how do you know when you're moving too slow or too fast?
It's hard to I guess I notice, some maybe telltales or signs that, if I'm just moving too fast and I haven't kind of settled, or then it's moving too fast. It's always like busy doing something, doing. And if I'm just kind of put the anchor down and settle, and I'm not really getting any movement or moving forward, then I feel like it's too slow. This is the view is nice, weather might be nice, the sun is shining and all, but I need to start moving forward, taking action.
When you get that feeling, when the view is nice, but there's a feeling that it's too slow, whereabouts is that feeling?
It's usually in my gut. Something is kind of pulling me forward, want me to move on.
Something, and I can see you moving with your body, something's pulling you forward. What kind of something could that something be when it's pulling you forward?
I don't know. I mean, it's maybe sound like a cliche, but it's like almost like there's fire inside that I've been settling for too long. Let's take action. Let's move forward. I don't know what to call that. It's a gut feel or some sort of reaction to, okay, the time is running. It's almost like I imagine like an hourglass, and time is running. I gotta start moving and not be too comfortable.
So there's a feeling in your gut, It's like a fire inside, not too comfortable. The time is to start moving, to take action.
Time is another factor that I guess maybe part of this metaphor. The time is finite, so I gotta use it wisely.
Time is finite. We've got to use it wisely. And sometimes there's a telltale signs that you're busy and not settled, and you need to let down that anchor. And when busy and not settled, how do you know?
It's almost like this is a metaphor I used before, and then it just came back to me. I used to swim, and when I swim, I gotta regulate my breathing. And if I'm not breathing for too long, I feel like I need to take a breath. So that's the telltale sign that I'm like out of breath. I'm like underwater. I need to come out for air.
So when it's too fast, out of breath, underwater, need to come up for air. And when it's too slow, there's that feeling in your gut, your chest, like a fire inside or an hourglass. Time is finite, time to take action. And there's a compass, an old school kind of compass that helps find out where you want to go, and a boat. Yeah. And when there's all of that, what do you know now about purpose?
I know it's a combination of things. Like it's just not, one thing. There is a combination. There is a lot of things at play. I also know that I need to pay more attention to these telltale signs, because sometimes I might ignore them. It's like the alarm clock when you just want to sleep for 5 more minutes and just hit snooze and go for another 5 minutes. And then, that will just continue until you're late. And then, so yeah, that's something I need to pay attention to, the telltale signs, the signals, and find if I need to listen to them or pay more attention to them.
And when purpose is a combination of things, has it always been like that?
Probably, but I think seeing those different things that I just described as part of this question, the questions have helped me become more aware. And sometimes tend to like lose that sort of awareness and then become more clear. Sometimes it's almost like the dust that covers something shiny, and then you gotta clean it up or wipe it every once in a while, and then that will shine again. So that's I think it's always been there. It just maybe it was a little bit of dust around it. So
is that a good place to sort of bring this to a close for now?
Yeah, I can keep going, but this is a good place to stop.
Yeah, it's the same for me. That's like 15 minutes or so, and you start getting curious, and you're like, oh, I'd like to know more. But yeah, sort of respecting your listeners, if it's all right with you, we'll bring it to a close, and then maybe think about, what was that like for you? What was your experience of receiving those questions?
Yeah, I was trying to think about thinking about the experience while I was in the experience, but at the same time, just trying to kind of there's a lot of digging. So this is one area that going a little deeper. Sometimes the word precise comes up in clean. The other thing is that the metaphor definitely provides a lot more range, expand if you ask me like what purpose means to you, I might just draw a blank or come up with something that I usually use, but the metaphors has provided some more like elements or things to play with.
With regards to that point, when you just said before, about digging, I think that's a really important thing, and one that I'd probably like to emphasize now in this conversation, is that clean language questions can go quite deep. So when you're beginning to learn clean language questions, we always recommend that you only use 2 or 3, because you can take somebody into somewhere maybe that they didn't want to go. And in that particular example with you, I was quite aware, I was very mindful of your stuff, and that this podcast, we don't know who it's going to go out to. So it's like holding your metaphors with real care and only talking about what we've agreed to talk about. So you said time is finite and we need to use it wisely. And I'm like, oh, wow, that's a real nugget. I'd really like to explore that. But that might have taken us to somewhere else. I'm not sure if that was really part of our contract, which was to talk about purpose. So you've got to get that thing and go, I'm interested in this, but is it in Salar's interest to talk about this, have we agreed to talk about this? Then no. So then, we put it to one side. And that for me, there's the clean language questions, but there's also the clean posture. Have I got the agreement to talk about this kind of stuff? Am I asking these questions for my curiosity or for yours? And when is the right place to stop? Particularly, you meet a colleague. I mean, I know that lots of us aren't back at work yet, but you meet a colleague by the coffee machine or something, and he says he's a bit depressed. And what kind of depressed? Anything else about that depressed? And when it's like, no, you don't have a deal to ask those kind of questions. So just be mindful of where and when you're using them.
You bring up a very important point here, because some coaches do have background in therapy and that's their profession, but even then they may not have a contract to go into that side of the work, right? The boundary is the coaching. And then the other thing that you brought up for me is this idea of, is this in service of the client or the person that I'm coaching or the team that I'm coaching? Am I asking this because it's in service of them or in service of me as the coach? I'm curious and I want to know. So those two things are very important. And sometimes we could slip into going down a path that might not be where the client wants to go. So maybe that brings up a question, like, let's say someone is still practicing this new skill and they went down that path. How do you recover? How do you come back so that you don't just continue down that path?
I suppose I would be saying something like, as soon as I got that awareness, I'm just noticing that we're talking about this, that, and the other, and we didn't really agree to that. What would you like to have happen now? So that's one of the key clean language questions, is that we generally set, if we're working on a one-to-one, we'll start the session with, what would you like to have happen? And it's really important for both of you really to note that down. And then as the coach, you're making sure that that's where your questions are taking the client. And it helps, you're talking about direction and keeping focused. That helps you as the coach to keep on that track and not get distracted by these other things. And then there's a number of tips. Penny Tompkins and James Lawley, who modelled David Grove and who sort of formalised a little bit symbolic modelling, they tell a story that they were running a training course once and noticed that a load of the clients were in tears, and they modelled it out to try and find out what happened, and noticed that a lot of coaches tend to ask questions about the problems. And when we ask questions about the problems, then we're going to get lots of information about problems. So they came up with what they call the PRO model: P for problem, R for remedy, and O for outcome. So when we get a problem, so I'm really fed up at work, what would you like to have happen? Well, I'd like to, whatever. And you keep going until, particularly when you're a beginner, until you've got the outcome. And then your questions are leading to a more positive place, rather than taking the person off down towards getting more information about the problem. And Penny and James quite often say, we don't need any more information about the problem. We've got enough. So it's using that question, and what would you like to have happen? And when, you're depressed or you're fed up or whatever, then what would you like to have happen is going to gently encourage the person to be moving towards a more outcome objective state of mind. And I would use that if I noticed that I'd gone off-piste, to bring the client back and say, so we've explored this and this is happening, and so now what would you like to have happen?
I like the question at the end when we were wrapping up. You said, with this new awareness or this new information, what is I don't know exactly how you phrase it, but it's like, okay, now that you know all this, what are you going to do with it? Because the questions help me drill down and dig deeper. But okay, now I have this new level of awareness. What do I do with it now? Right? How do I move forward? So it sounds similar to what you were saying about like the problem, reality, outcome. So instead of just continue to drill down for the sake of drilling down or curiosity, as a coach, you need to step back and look at the big picture. Okay, what am I doing to get them, to see now that they have this information, how they're going to move forward?
I think the other thing is, you and I met through doing Clean for Teams and systemic modelling, which is slightly different from symbolic modelling. Systemic modelling is the brainchild of Caitlin Walker, and it's using clean language in a group. And then it's even more important that we don't go down too deep with any one person. It can feel a little bit like voyeurism. So what we're doing there is modelling sort of everybody equally by getting 2 or 3 questions here, 2 or 3 questions here, getting more information about how people do things, but without going down into the depths. Because again, we haven't really got a contract to do that when we're working with a group. It's not really fair to take somebody down into their intimate stuff while everybody else watches what's going on. So it's quite a different approach when you're using on a one-to-one to when you're using it in a group.
Can you say more maybe about that symbolic modeling and systemic modeling? There are 2 different skills that are used with different participants, so individuals and groups. You kind of touch upon the main difference about like the moving on, because you want to give some sort of equal time to each participant. If you have a group, when you work with individuals and teams, how do you decide these are the questions that I'm going to use with this individual or this team? Do you plan or have some sort of preparation, or do you know the outcome and then you kind of play with the questions, clean questions with them?
So if I was working one-on-one, I'd start the session by saying, what would you like to have happen? And then I would be entirely focused on that person and I would be modelling their landscape. So if we take what happened with you, we've got things like a boat, an anchor, a compass, the time, and those are all symbols within your metaphor. So I'm asking more questions to develop the symbols within this landscape so that you can get some more information about what purpose means to you. So this is where we get the symbolic modelling. Modelling is like building a map. So I'm building a map of your metaphorical representation of purpose. And I would be doing the same with a client if they came to me and said, for example, that they'd lost their purpose. If I'm doing it with a group, then I'll be using the same kinds of questions, but I won't be going into so much detail with any one person. I'll be bouncing the attention around the group. Oh, so for Salah, he's got an anchor and it's deep in the water. Who's different to that? And I'd ask 2 or 3 questions for somebody else. And then we'd be getting the group to be noticing what was the same or what was different. But before that, I would have had to have a good reason for doing it. So we touched earlier, is this in service of me or is this in service of the group? And when I'm doing systemic modelling, I'm modelling a system, so a group of people working out, in this particular instance, what purpose is like for them. But I need to have a reason. Why is this of use to the group? So maybe it's a group of people and we're all coming together and we're working on a new project. Well, we need to know what the purpose of that project is. So we'll be looking at perhaps what purpose means to you, getting everybody a little bit of information about purpose, and then tying it. And when we're coming together and we've got this new association and we need a clear purpose, what do we know now about purpose relating to this association? So I would have decided what we were doing, but I would only have decided based on what was going to be useful to the group.
There are a lot of different pieces to clean. I think, at least for me, when I first started to learn about clean, before I took some more classes and training and practice a little, the questions were the first thing that I learned about. What would you like to have happen? Is there anything else about X? And so, but again, at some point, if you don't have the context, as you mentioned, it's like, you get stuck. Like you're gonna, at some point, there's no more drilling. So how you bring it back to focus and kind of wrap it up. So yeah, it requires a lot of practice and just to finding how those pieces connect. Like you said, talking about purpose, why should the group care about purpose? What's the context here? Like, before you even start to go with the questions.
I think it takes a lot of practice, and it also, for me, takes quite a lot of working through my own system. So that's been quite tough, to sort of notice my own patterns and my own presuppositions and that kind of thing. And I think, as we said at the beginning, it is very gentle. So if you do it right, if you can create those conditions where you can get a group of people and you can explore these tricky topics, but you're doing it with care. And I was just talking to somebody today about diversity and inclusion. And it's so lovely to be able to bring a group of people together and talk about these topics that, they can be a little bit difficult, but it's like we can handle it because we've got that curiosity. It's like, oh, so how are you doing that? When you get angry, when you see, I don't know, racial slurs or what's going on for you? And it's just this real gentle curiosity to find out what patterns, what sort of has led you to that kind of place. And then you can gently tease apart, is this a behaviour that is useful to me? Do I want to carry on? Where did it come from? Or is this something I'd like to change? And particularly when I'm working with a group, I really like it because I hear other people's stuff. And it's that hearing of other people's stuff that, okay, this way that I've been doing it is my way, and there's other ways, and I can try them on and I can do something else. And I really like that. It's just this gentle teasing apart.
I want to highlight that point, but we can come back to it, like working through what's happening as you're practicing these questions. And also, what you said about like a difficult conversation, like, racial equity and things that people tend to not talk about because it's difficult. So, how do we create a space or an environment where it's okay to talk about it? Metaphors that can seem to be very useful in this conversation because you're describing what's it like for you through a metaphor, and that can help others build on that or find who's got something same or different, which can improve or create this sort of connection rather than shut down the conversation. So when you say about like the working through things, I know for me, when I was practicing the clean language questions, sometimes I kind of lose a sense of direction. Where am I going with this? And how have you been able to work through that as you're practicing clean?
So, I mean, obviously at the beginning, I also got lost, and, we often talk about going down a rabbit hole. And I noticed, so working through my own stuff, I noticed that I'm quite drawn to problems because I often think that if I knew what to do, I would do it. And so I need to explore the problem in order to find out what I would like to do about it. And I recognise that is my stuff. So I'm holding, when I'm facilitating or coaching, I'm going, is this like useful to the client, or is this your stuff that you're interested in the problem? But then what really helps is keeping it steady and not going anywhere until you know where you're going. So quite often in a coaching session with people who are new to clean language, somebody will say what they'd like to have happen. And it's like they shoot off and off they go. And I've learned through watching Marion Way and Caitlin Walker how much they hold the person there before going anywhere else. So can I think of an example off the top of my head? I'd like to be calm and unflappable even when there's loads of drama around me, somebody might say. And you're like, okay, and is there anything, what kind of calm? And you stick with calm, and then you ask them questions about unflappable, and is there anything else about unflappable, and where is unflappable? And when calm and unflappable, and there's lots of drama around you, anything else about the drama around you, and you model. And it's like you just hold them to that outcome until you're really sure that that's what they want. And that's when you start developing the questions.
Yeah, I think part of the preparation is setting the intention around like, okay, this is what we're trying to get to. It's like the compass from the metaphor earlier, but just here's what we're trying to go. And then let's say you're working with them and then something happened and they shifted the direction. So you bring that to the awareness, right? You bring that to what's going on now, to their awareness, and then where they want to go now. And then that kind of creates that shift on, okay, what kind of questions I'm going to ask next, because we need to reset. That we thought we were going in one direction based on the compass, and now they're shifting somewhere else, and now let's bring that into the awareness and then ask different set of questions. Is that how you see it happen?
Yeah, so my metaphor for coaching is, I'm a mum, and we're going on a journey, and we're not leaving the house until everyone's been to the toilet and we've just done a double check. Have you put your bag in? have you got your coat? And have you got your seatbelt on? You know, so when I'm starting my coaching session, I'm sort of like turning around and saying, are you ready? Have you got your belt on? Do we know where we're going? Have you got the map? And only when we've asked those kind of questions and like stabilized the car or the boat or whatever the thing is, only then do we start going. And the client has said, you know, I'd like to be calm and unflappable. If being calm and unflappable was as easy as that, they would have done it by now. So you know that your journey towards calm and unflappable is not going to be straightforward. Something is going to happen, a problem is going to come, or that there will be something that stops them from getting there. So then you have to go, okay, you want to be calm and unflappable, and now we've just got this problem. Do we spend time on this problem, or do we continue towards calm and unflappable? And you might either get a gut feeling as a coach about needing to develop that problem, or you might, as you say, bring it to their attention and say, so calm and unflappable and this problem. And when this problem and calm and unflappable, what would you like to have happen? And then the client will say, well, yeah, shit, I really need to explore, you know, all this drama that's perhaps due to my childhood or something. But they had no idea that in their journey towards calm and unflappable, this big stuff from their childhood was going to come. So you do need to just double check and go, well, you know, what would you like to have happen? And they might say, oh yeah, well, I know that's there, and at some point I'll come back to it, but just right now I'd like to continue working on calm. And can we do that? And what support and resources do you need to do that? So I think it is this thing, you know, between taking the wheel and driving, and then sometimes saying to the client, well, you take the wheel, because this is your stuff.
I love that metaphor. You know, I heard it often in clean language classes, and letting go versus, you know, taking charge and balancing that. One of the questions that you made me think of as we were doing the work on purpose was, you know, what's the relation between the compass and the anchor? So sometimes it seems like some questions hit more at the like more logical, and some questions hit more like the gut or the heart, and balancing that, because you don't want to go too much into the head. People go into their head and they get stuck there, and I know I do. And so yeah, that's you know, trying to balance the, you know, using metaphors, using sort of awareness question that can use different parts of thinking, not just like mental in terms of like logical thinking, but also, you know, almost like the what's possible, like more of the expanding sort of question. So I know we're coming to an end here. What would be a good place for someone to start learning about clean if they decide, okay, this looks interesting, I want to learn more? So
if they're interested in clean coaching, then I think Marion Way is the best trainer. She's written a book, Clean Approaches for Coaches, which is really well laid out, really good place to start. And I know that she runs regular trainings. They've got a new one at the moment, which is ICF accredited, clean language for I don't know, it's not for coaches, but it's for anybody interested in clean language. But it's a really great place to start. And like I say, I think Marion is one of the best trainers in clean language. If you're interested in working with teams, then the Clean for Teams systemic modelling approach that's also run by Training Attention and Caitlin Walker. There's loads of information on the website, cleanlearning.co.uk. There's blogs, web posts, and I know that Penny and James's website, Clean Language, it's just got so much information. And don't visit it unless you've got, you know, a good hour or two, an afternoon ahead of you, because you'll just go down that rabbit hole. You know, that they've got transcripts, they've got little videos, and there's so much information that's available. So if you are interested, then they're really good places to start. And then, you know, various courses. This sort of like an hour taster session. I run a thing called Dive Deeper, where we do 3 hours, which is a format that I really like, because you said, you know, about the head and the heart. And for me, we often start off at the head, and then we have this little dip down to the heart, and then come back up again. And 3 hours is just a perfect time. So yeah, there's loads of different offerings.
I've been meaning to come to one of those, because I know it's like trying to attend, like you figure out like the UK time and US time, and finding the right time to join. How do people find out about you or to connect with you? And then maybe what is, you know, something you want to leave with before we end here?
So if people want to connect with me, I'm on LinkedIn, quite easy to find, and my website is sarahscarrettcoaching.com if people want to see the various things that I've got on what do I want to leave is just with a big smile, really. I've enjoyed chatting, and yeah, it's really great to share some of the sparkle and the magic of clean language and systemic modelling. So thanks for asking me to chat with you today.
Thank you, Sarah. It's been a pleasure. And again, I appreciate the insights and the experience about purpose. I'm leaving with new insights and awareness. So I appreciate that.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Hey, thank you for listening. I hope this conversation gave you something to think about or take action on. Remember, take action and get clarity. Then repeat.